How's it going, everyone? In this video, we'll cover the Qt Smart Money Assistant configuration. This video is meant for current and prospective users of the Qt SMA and is meant to aid in your configuration of the indicator and to bring you up to speed on its usage and how it can apply to your trading. Let's start by taking a look at our configuration for the SMA. At the moment, my configuration for the SMA is pretty bare. I don't have much enabled at all, but as the video progresses and we move through the options available to us, then our chart will begin to come to life. Let's start with the asset configurations present at the bottom of the configuration. We have the first triad, the second triad, and the third triad. One thing you may notice about the triad configurations is that the first triad only contains two options. This is because the first asset of our first triad is our chart asset. And asset 2 and 3 represent closely related assets to our chart asset. The second and third triad contain three configuration options, and the second and third triad represent intermarket assets. So assets that may be related to the asset in our first triad, but do not hold the same asset class. That's important to remember, since that means that our second and third triads are used in intermarket sequential SMT, while our first triad is used in standard sequential SMT. Let's go back to the top of our configuration and let's review our options for sequential SMT. The SMA supports overt, hidden, and compound sequential SMT. We'll take a look at overt and how that relates to our chart. I'll leave hidden and compound up to our users for sake of brevity in the video. So let's enable overt. And in our condition filter, we'll enable sequential SMT. Now, one thing you may notice way far out to the left here is that one of our precision swing points is now highlighted. Each of the other precision swing points, noted by this gray circle, are unfiltered precision swing points, meaning that they did not meet the requirements of our condition filter to be printed a bearish or bullish color, however you have that configured. Let's take a look at our overt sequential SMT and precision swing point that was printed. We can see that this particular precision swing point was printed after overt sequential SMT between cycles Q2 and Q3 of the daily cycle, and the sequential SMT occurred between NQ and YM. If we were to enable hidden and compound sequential SMT, we can expect the same behavior from the SMA whenever it encounters these flavors of sequential SMT. So for hidden, we wouldn't anticipate the wicks being taken out, but instead we would expect sequential SMT amongst the bodies, right? And for compound, we would expect sequential SMT amongst the bodies and the wicks. Whenever our condition filter is set to filter on sequential SMT and we encounter any of these, then what we'll proceed to print bearish or bullish price action based on that fact. Let's take a look at our next condition filter option, which is previous quarter premium and discount range percentage. Right now, I have this previous quarter premium and discount range percentage set to 10%. Let's enable that. As we can see, the precision swing point that was once highlighted has now disappeared. And if I plot a fib with the top 10 percentile and the bottom 10 percentile marked out between these blue lines, we can see that the precision swing point that was plotted here did not reach my very restrictive condition filter for the previous premium and discount quarter range. If you need that well defined for you, the previous quarter's range from high to low is used in this calculation. That's very restrictive, and you may ask, what if one of the other assets reached into this level? That would be mirrored price action. We can enable something like that by enabling cross-referencing. What cross-referencing does is it searches the other assets in your first triad to see if one of those assets met our condition filter. This cross-referencing option applies to the premium discount range percentage, the true opens, and the defining range, as they represent premium and discount either in regard to time or price. Let's enable cross-referencing and see how this changes our chart. As we can see, that bearish precision swing point that was filtered out has now returned. And if we check with YM here, we can see why, right? In YM, and let's grab a fib here. In YM, we can see that the precision swing point that was plotted here is well above the filter's requirements. Let's take a look at some of our other condition filter options here. For our true opens, this would behave very similarly to the premium and discount range percentage above, except for this is in regard to premium and discount for time. Let's enable our true open filter. And in our display options, let's turn on our low time frame true open. With our true open filter enabled, we can see that once we had compound sequential SMT here combined with a precision swing point, we were able to print this precision swing point. If the true open had been any higher or this price action been any lower, then a bearish precision swing point would not plot here, since we would be in discount in regard to time. For our true opens, we have single and we also have stacked, with stacked representing a true open being present for our current time frame and a true open being present for our higher time frame, so one time frame above your current. If you have optional checked here, this has a pretty unique behavior. What we are telling the SMA when we enable our optional flag is that if we are in Q1 and we have not yet printed a true open and all of our other condition filters have been met, we will plot anyway. In short, that means that the true open is not required if it is not present. For stacked, if we have a higher time frame true open present, as a matter of fact, let's plot one of those to our chart. If we have a higher time frame true open present and our lower time frame is not present, then we will go ahead and print the precision swing point as long as it meets the requirement for the higher time frame true open. If both of the true opens are present and both of the true opens are aligned correctly, as we see here, and the rest of our condition filter is met, then we'll continue to plot the precision swing point. Our next option is the defining range. I'll go ahead and plot one of those to the chart now. We'll plot the low time frame DFR. So at the moment, my DFR is set to filter on CE, or consequent encroachment. Consequent encroachment represents the midpoint of the DFR, or the 50%. This is useful for whenever we want to split the DFR into quadrants, right? With above the DFR being quadrant 1, inside the DFR but above the 50% being quadrant 2, below the 50% being quadrant 3, and then outside and below the DFR being quadrant 4. Since my condition filter is set to filter on the 50% or consequent encroachment, we were able to get our bearish precision swing point to highlight here. If I decide to switch our consequent encroachment option here to full, then we should see our bearish precision swing point that was printed here disappear. Of course, I'm aware that another asset may have met the condition filter. So I'm going to disable cross-referencing, I'll disable true opens, and I'll disable premium discount range percentage so that we can focus on the defining range. As we can see, we still have our precision swing point highlighted here since we're above the consequent encroachment. Let's change this option to full. As we can see, this precision swing point has now become an unfiltered precision swing point since it no longer meets the requirements of our condition filter. The condition filter has the option to enable alerts. If you have this flag enabled, then whenever we encounter a precision swing point that meets the condition filter, then we will send an alert to the user. Let's go ahead and re-enable cross-referencing and our other configuration options so that we can maintain the life that our chart has currently. Next, let's take a look at precision gaps. Let's change chart time frames. Let's go to the 4-hour. There are two precision gaps that are highlighted on our screen at the moment. For those who need a definition, a precision gap is a candle that is represented as a precision swing point and also a fair value gap, while in another asset, the precision swing point is not a fair value gap. When we encounter these in the QT SMA, we highlight them the same color as your bullish or bearish precision swing points. We can see a bullish variant here and a bearish variant here. For sake of brevity, if anyone needs an explanation on how those are used, then we can have a discussion on that in the Discord. Next, let's cover the market structure shift settings. If we check off Show Market Structure Shift, what this instructs the SMA to do is then plot these triangles in the direction of the market structure shift. At the moment, we have it set to on breach. What this means is that whenever we have a candle breach a high or low, such as one here, or one here, then we'll go ahead and show a market structure shift. My swing strength is set to 3 at the moment. What this means is for a swing to be considered for market structure shift, it must be the lowest low or highest high 3 candles to the right and 3 candles to the left, as shown here for this swing. Our SMT market structure shift behavior is how we control what we would like for our SMA to do with SMT market structure shift. There are 3 options. We can decide to highlight the SMT market structure shift as I have shown here. Let's zoom in there actually so we can take a good look. This section. The highlighted triangles are SMT market structure shift. What this means is that, take this low here for example. What this means is that on this candle, one of the assets in your first triad took this low while others did not. That represents an SMT market structure shift. Now you may notice I have multiple printed here. The gray triangles are colored the same color as your unfiltered precision swing points. These represent standard market structure shifts, where your chart asset took out a low that met our swing strength as well. One more option that we have here for the market structure shift is to require SSMT. It's highly recommended to enable this option. And what this option does is force the SMA to only print market structure shifts when it encounters a sequential SMT that we have enabled in our sequential SMT settings. With that enabled, we can see that only high probability market structure shifts have been printed. With that, let's now take a look at another feature. Show unfiltered represents our gray precision swing points here, along with the color that I've chosen for them here. If we disable that option, it's pretty straightforward as it may seem. Our gray precision swing points all disappear. I highly recommend leaving this option on. Just because a precision swing point does not meet your filter does not mean that it's unimportant. The next option here represents advanced precision swing points. Daye mentees of 2024 may know this option as a TPD. If you want more information on the TPD and how it is utilized, I recommend following Jacob Speculates on Twitter and attending his lectures. With this option enabled, we only print precision swing points that meet the conditions of an advanced precision swing point. So not only a crack in correlation on the candle, but also a crack in correlation in the swing itself. So candle 1, candle 2, candle 3 will have a crack in correlation between candle 1 and candle 1's close and candle 3's open. The SMA also supports precision candles. If we enable those, we should see them highlighted the same color that I have here. Let's pick a more contrasting color to kind of differentiate between that and our precision gaps. I'll choose yellow. Although they are important, precision candles can be found nearly everywhere, usually before we have a sequential SMT to reverse price. I'll disable that for now. The next option that I want to cover is the precision swing point fractalization. What precision swing point fractalization does for us is plot higher cycle precision swing points on our current time frame or current cycle. I'll enable that now. And what we should see are several of these thick lines outside of the chart price action. And what these represent in this chart's case are precision swing points on the daily time frame. This is very useful for models that treat the precision swing point as a PD array and seek to find nested PD arrays within that precision swing point, as shown here. Lastly, we'll cover our QT toolbox. I'll skip the display settings here for sake of brevity. They're about as simple as they sound, but our QT toolbox represents another set of major features for the SMA. These features noted here, besides the QT tooltip, are present in our QT watermark indicator. The QT tooltip itself, that represents what you've been seeing throughout the video, wherever I highlight over a precision swing point. The QT tooltip gives us pivotal information whenever a precision swing point is printed. The QT tooltip is useful for whenever we want a quick snapshot in price to make a quick decision. Price moves fast, and so should you. The QT tooltip, it comes with two different options. Simple overview is what you've been seeing, and then we have cycle conditions. So what this does is it'll tell you which sequential SMT was present on your low time frame, mid time frame, and your high time frame at the point that the precision swing point was printed. We can see here for this particular precision swing point that we had hidden SSMT on the monthly, no SSMT on the quarterly, and bearish sequential SMT on the yearly. Next, let's cover our QT watermark. The QT watermark comes with 4 separate watermark options. There's the standard QT watermark, represented by our top and center watermark here. Fairly simple, displays the date, the cycle, the quarter within the cycle, your chart asset, and your time frame. The watermark flares just there for fun, right? In order to make your chart unique. There are several options. Let's switch ours to a crown. Next, we have our bias watermark, and I'll move this to bottom center so that we can see it a bit better. It comes with 2 different options. Simple, which will display the cycle abbreviation along with the type of sequential SMT. Whether it's standard SSMT or Intermarket is what I mean by type. If we highlight over the bias watermark, then we get an SSMT report. What this tells us is what the last bias was for sequential SSMT, the type of sequential SMT that was encountered, and for the assets in our first triad, we'll see which assets resulted in a failure swing for that SSMT and which assets resulted in a turtle soup. If we hop over to the next bias, so 2 time frames up, I believe, no, 1 time frame up, sorry, we'll see a separate SSMT report for the bias that was set there. The main purpose for our bias watermark is for you to have a snapshot of what's happening across multiple time frames for bias. Let's drop down a time frame to see if we can get a little more out of our bias watermark. So we can see at this snapshot in time, we had bearish sequential SMT on the daily cycle, bearish sequential SMT on the weekly cycle, and bullish sequential SMT on the monthly cycle. Let's now take a look at our news watermark. The news watermark is as it sounds. The news watermark will supply us with the news for the day if we're on the daily session. If we move up to the weekly cycle, we'll see the news for the week on the weekly cycle. And if we go down to session, then we'll also see the news for the session cycle. The PM session of this past Friday had no news. Let's see if I rewind to the AM session. We can see that we had Q3 high impact news, as obvious from the price action here. And if we hover over our news watermark, then we can see the times and types of news for that particular quarter. Let's disable our news watermark for now, and let's focus on our symmetry watermark. I'll move that to the top right. Our symmetry watermark represents the symmetry that is present for our assets in the first triad. As you can see, still on the NQ chart, we have the current symmetry or correlations for ES and YM. I also have the Nikkei here. I was able to get this for our symmetry watermark by configuring it here under symmetry watermark under include asset. If we disable include asset, we'll see that that disappears. I mistakenly had invert enabled here. My apologies. But once that comes back, we can see that it's still okay. And that just about does it for our configuration. There are a few options that I would like to discuss for Intermarket, and this is in regards to performance. As we may know, as quarterly theory traders, if we're doing our full analysis on the market, there are 9 assets that we must account for. The SMA also has 9 assets that it must account for so that you don't have to. But that does weigh heavily on the indicator. In order to improve performance, only include the triads that you would like to include in your calculation by checking either of these flags. If I disable both of these, along with having Intermarket SSMT disabled here, then we do no intermarket analysis. If I enable Intermarket SSMT here, I must have one of these options enabled. Let's enable our Forex Intermarket SSMT. If I hover over some of these options now, we'll notice that if we had Intermarket Sequential SMT, that is noted in the QT tooltip, as well as if I enable our bias watermark, we should also see it there. Nothing but Intermarket Sequential SMT here. but we also see it shown in our bias watermark. That concludes our configuration of the QT Smart Money Assistant. If you have any questions, feel free to join our Discord and ask them there. If you would like more info on how to obtain the QT Smart Money Assistant, please check the description below. Thank you very much, and as always, good luck and good trading.